Hey guys, welcome back to a brand new video. In today's video, we're going to be taking a look at the state of Iowa and what I think is going to happen to the state's future, politically speaking. So we're going to hop right into it. Just for the record, I've filmed this video, this is my 5th time filming it. And I've said the same intro, so I sometimes I'll be doing an intro and I'll sound like a robot because I'm programmed to just say the same kind of thing at the beginning of every video. So I'll just be sitting there and I'll be mindlessly talking, and then I'll be oh yeah, I need to start talking politics and actually use my brain. So we're just gonna get right into it. This video could go for a long time because I've had takes I've gone 20 minutes just talking about Al Gore's coalition in the 2000 election in Iowa, which is great, but it's not productive for a video like this. So we're gonna hop right into it. We're gonna take a look at the history of Iowa. Also, my brightness is super high. That's weird. Okay, I don't know why I felt so high. Whatever. Okay, so we're gonna hop right into it. Take a look at this map. So Al Gore, he won. Okay, that's too low. So Al Gore won Iowa by about 0.3% in 2000, and I find this really interesting. I've always found this election interesting because Gore, he lost the election, obviously. Now, he won the popular vote, but he lost the presidential election. He's never became president, obviously. And despite losing the election, he actually won Iowa. And, it's really rare to think about now. It's kind of weird because it's Iowa voted 12% to the right of the country in 2020 at the presidential level. And, it would be weird to imagine a scenario where Joe Biden was to win Iowa without winning the election by a lot, actually. I think, to win Iowa, Biden would have had to have won the national popular vote by 12. So he would have had to win Texas, win Ohio, win maybe Kansas or even Missouri too. That would have been close. So Iowa was really quite red in 2020 relative to the rest of the country, and so it's now strange to fathom Iowa going blue when the country as a whole goes red. So Gore, obviously Iowa was a different state 20 years ago. The Democrats were a different party, as were the Republicans, but we saw most of the counties that Biden won, I think, voted for Gore. I think all of them did. Yeah, all of them did vote for Gore, but Gore did better, a lot better in the rural areas of Iowa. For example, taking a look at a kind of Palo Alto County, which is right here. Palo Alto voted for Bush by I think it was only a point in 2000, and then in 2020, Palo Alto was won by Trump by 37. So, when you talk about areas like Palo Alto, we talk about rural areas in Iowa. They weren't necessarily blue 20 years ago. There wasn't some magical Democratic candidate like Al Gore who was able to win the rural areas, but it was just so much closer and so much less polarized. Same with, for example, just to take a look at Polk County, which is where Des Moines is, the largest county in Iowa by population. Polk voted for Gore by only 6%. It wasn't really that much of a blowout. In 2020, yeah, it was semi-close, but Biden won it by 15. So the largest county in Iowa trended blue. And the urban areas that are in Iowa, Polk or Lynn or Johnson, right? These are some of the bluest areas in Iowa. They're just they're so polarized because you have these urban, more college-educated voters who are just voting Democrat, 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 and you have these rural voters who are maybe not college-educated or less diverse, and they're voting for Republicans. So that's kind of what you're seeing in Iowa. It's also in other places too. But Gore, bottom line, he did quite well in Iowa. It's interesting he won in 2000. Now, 2004 it flips to the Republicans. It's nothing really changed. Gore Kerry did a little worse than Gore in some of these driftless region areas, and he also, Bush just kind of improved on his 2000 margins by a couple points. It was kind of a uniform shift in Iowa that everything shifted a couple points to the right, and as a result, Kerry lost Iowa by about a point. 2008, Obama comes back. He wins Iowa. He wins it by 9. So this is quite an impressive victory. I think he actually won the majority of counties in Iowa. I'm looking at this correctly. Yeah, I think he did. And he did very, very well in the urban areas. He did very well in the rural areas too for a Democrat. He came close to winning a lot of these counties. He actually did win Palo Alto County, which is the kind I keep bringing up mostly because I think it's interesting because he shifted 37% to the right over the span of 20 years. And so yeah, now that being said, I think it was kind of an anomaly because 2008 was a historically bad year for Republicans. It was a disaster for them. Comparing anything to 2008, literally everything gets blue or gets red or compared to 2008. So I don't really think it's fair to compare anything to 2008. But it's just interesting to see how Iowa's changed. So the coalitions have definitely changed. 2012, kind of the same thing. It's just that it was kind of this same thing in 2000, 2004. Democrats just kind of lost a few points everywhere in the state, and as a result, it narrowed. Or 2004 it flipped. In 2012 just narrowed. Excuse me. And so then at this point, I was it's a pretty competitive state. It's a state that usually is kind of a bellwether. And then in 2016, Donald Trump wins Iowa by 10, and it's like, hey guys, what happened? Like, literally 2 years ago, like this map looks like these maps literally look so different. Like on this map, 2012, you can see all of eastern Iowa, pretty blue. 2016, it's red, blue, red. Like I can toggle between these maps: blue, red, and Clinton, she basically did the same as Obama in Polk, Story, Blackhawk, Lynn, Johnson, and Scott. I'm glad I can name all those. Like she did the same. It's not like she did worse there, but rural Iowa took a big jump to the right. In the riverless regions with working class voters, especially out here, come towards Wisconsin, towards Minnesota, they all just bolted to the right. Like Scott County is like the only county that stayed blue. That's only because it's the home of Davenport, which is like a larger city anyway. So it's kind of like, again, kind of bucking the trend, but not really even part of this region. Like, in 2012, for example, I think this is Clinton County. Is that Clinton County? Yes, it is Clinton County. Clinton voted to the left of Scott, and then in 2016. In 2016, Clinton voted for Trump, ironically. But yeah, so, I think with that being said, I think I'm going to move on for the history. But bottom line is, Iowa is a state that has always been a very white working class state. And in the past, Democrats were able to appeal to those groups. And, their platform was less socially liberal. 20 years ago, Democrats were, I guess let's say 25 to be safe. But, for example, 25 years ago, the Democrats were the party of don't ask, don't tell, right? And they were a party that was, they weren't against gay marriage, but they didn't really want to talk about it. And, now they're a party that's pro-gay marriage, which I think is a good thing. I don't really like to express my opinions here, but I think, I think gay marriage shouldn't really be an issue. I think it should be, love is love, whatever. I don't really think it's something that should be debated, if I'm being honest. Like in an ideal world, it's just like, okay, you're gay, that's your sexuality, cool, right? So, in my book, it's a good thing that I think, in 1996, maybe a third of the country was pro-gay marriage, now it's 2/3, now it's the majority. And, Oberville v. Hodges, right? So, yeah. But, 25 years ago, neither party was really in support of gay marriage, especially the Republicans. Now the Republicans kind of like, it's kind of like reverse. Now the Republicans are not really for it, but they don't really talk about it because they know it's a losing issue. And, for Democrats, they're pro-gay marriage. And so that's worked great for Democrats in suburban areas. It's worked great for them in areas like Georgia, Texas, North Carolina, Virginia. But in Iowa and in Ohio too, they're losing these white non-college educated voters who might be progressive or even Democrats at the economic level. They're pro-union Democratic ancestral Democratic voters. But when Democrats talk about issues like abortion, gun rights, gay marriage, right, it kind of alienates those voters. So, Iowa, that's happened. Where in 2012, Obama did a really good job. He was still pro-gay marriage, but he still did like a really good job of appealing to these voters. And as a result, he was rewarded. He won Iowa. He did very, very well in these counties. In 2016, Trump, it makes it all about how the Democrats, the party of the establishment, how they, how they're, radical left-wing corporatists, right? It paid off. What Trump said resonated with a lot of voters. And in 2020, not much changed. Like, Biden did a little better than Clinton in Iowa. He didn't win it. And he still lost nearly all these counties. He still lost Clinton County by 11%. He still lost Cedar County. He still was able to lose Jones County. He still, Blackhawk, I think, narrowed a little bit. But, he still didn't really do well. He didn't flip back Cerro Gordo either, which was something I identified as the benchmark for him. I thought he was going to flip it back. He did not. He lost it by 6. So, Biden did not really do that well in Iowa. So, yeah. Now, to get back to demographics, I think demographics are really interesting. I think the demographic studies are interesting. They're super cool thing to look at. So, Iowa's a state that it is 85% white, as you can see here. This stat includes Hispanics, and I generally consider Hispanics I like to go by just like race and origin. Just like look at just individually, kind of high level, because I don't think it's smart to classify everyone who's not a person of color as white, because it's generally just not everyone is going to fall under that identity. So it's kind of just good to recognize everyone's individuality. That's what I'm trying to do here. So Iowa's a state's 85% white, 60% Hispanic. It's a 2% mixed race, 0.2% Native Hawaiian, 3% Asian, 0.5% Native American, I guess I should say, 4% black. So the largest minorities in Iowa, or I guess I don't really like to use that term. I guess I should refrain from using that term. But the largest groups in Iowa are whites, African Americans, and Hispanics, and so that is it's quite a disparity because Hispanics and African Americans only make up about 10% of Iowa's population combined, and white voters 85%. So Iowa, in my state of California, for example, very diverse, and it is a state that is majority minority. The state of Iowa is 85% white, and 20 years ago that really wouldn't have been a big deal for Democrats because 20 years ago, if you want to look at white voters in exit polls, which I think are interesting too, 20 years ago, let's see the exit polls 20 years ago. Let's go back to 2000. White voters voted for George W. Bush by 12%. In 2020, or I guess in 2016, white voters voted for Donald Trump by 19, or by 21. So that is a 9-point swing, and it's with the largest group nationwide. Like, that's a massive swing nationwide. 1996, which was when Bill Clinton won Iowa by a lot, I believe, white voters voted for Bob Dole by 3%. In 2016, they voted for Trump by 21. So white voters have swung massively to the right in 20 years, and in Iowa, it's states that's very white. That kind of correlates. It's kind of a linear trend, and I'm not going to make a graph right now. I don't really have the energy to do that. But what I will say is that as the percentage of white voters vote Republican go up, Iowa's going to keep going or keep trending red because Iowa's a state that's majority white. The country is America as a whole is diversifying for sure. And maybe in 10 years from now, Iowa's going to be 80% white rather than 85% white. But the fact of the matter is, Democrats are losing white voters at a very steep pace, and unless that changes rapidly, they're not going to be in position with Iowa. So Iowa, Democrats did in 2018 they had a bit of a renaissance. They did well there. I don't think I can find maybe I can't find exit polls. I don't really know, but. Democrats definitely improved with white voters because 2020 was a blue wave, yada yada yada. It was just a really good year for Democrats, and they improved with white voters, specifically in Iowa, and they flipped 2 seats. Finkenauer beat Rod Blum, and Cindy actually did beat David Young, and she actually held on in 2020. At this rate, I don't think Democrats are going to win Iowa anytime soon because Clinton lost it by 10, Biden lost it by 8. Biden lost it by 8 in a year that should have been pretty good for Democrats. Trump had a 42% approval rating heading into Election Day. There was a recession. Biden should have wiped the floor with Trump, and the election was still pretty close. And so, Iowa, the fact that Iowa voted 12% to the right of the country suggests that that trend's only going to continue. It's going to keep getting more and more Republican because in 2016 it was also 12% to the right of the country. 2020 it stayed the same. 2018. I think Iowa House Democrats will probably vote by 2%, so they voted 7% to the right of the country. So it's Iowa's been voting to the right of the country for a while. I think in 2012 was the last time it voted anywhere close to even with the country. It was pretty close. That being said, I think that I don't really know if it's a linear trend. It might not be arithmetic, but what I will say is that Iowa. The sequence here is that it keeps getting redder and redder to the country. So, if I had to guess in 2024, if it's Biden versus Trump or if it's Biden versus Trump again, God forbid, I guess I shouldn't say that, but if it's Biden versus Trump again, I will. I'm guessing Trump's going to win Iowa by 10 to 12%. We'll say 12 to be ambitious here, and then the Biden wins popular vote by maybe 2 or 3. I would vote 14 to 16% to the right of the country, somewhere in that ballpark. And in 2000, it voted literally with the country. Gore won Iowa by 0.3. He won the popular vote by 0.5. 2004, Bush won the popular vote by, I think, 2%. He won Iowa by 1%. So Iowa was a state that was very in line with the country even 16 years ago. And now it's just kind of faded. It's become a state that, I think that's mostly because of its demographics, right? Because Iowa, America's getting more and more diverse. And our shifting demographics are changing. I guess I should say the demographics are changing. And 20 years ago, America was much less diverse than it is now. It was a much whiter country. It was a much less college-educated country. And Iowa was more similar to what America is now. And that's why, as a result, Iowa voted more similar to the country as a whole. But now that like Iowa stayed the same, America is not, and that's why Iowa is now a state that's going to consistently vote double, which is more Republican in the country. Like, that's just it. And so I think in the future we're going to see Iowa staying red. I don't really think the Democrats are in a position to win any races there anytime soon. They're going to have a House seat there in all likelihood. The Republicans are probably going to end up. I mean, I don't really know what's going on with Iowa redistricting. I haven't been following Iowa redistricting specifically. I'll have to check up on that after this video. But they're going to, Democrats are going to be at least competitive in the House in Iowa in the 2020s. But they're not winning a Senate race there. I'll say that right now. They're not going to probably win. I mean, barring something insane happening in 2024, 2028, they're not going to win a presidential election there. And I doubt that they will win a governorship there. Governorship's a little closer because, governor races are really wonky. And in 2018, Fred Hubbell did fine. But I'm not going to, say that right now. So I think that is going to do it for this video. I hope you enjoyed. This is kind of a podcast. I didn't like flip between the screens too much. And I've always wanted to like secretly be a podcaster. So I guess this is kind of my inner podcaster coming out. But yeah, that's it for this video. I hope you enjoyed. If you did, leave a like, subscribe to the channel if you haven't already. I'll see you all in the next one.